Hey designers, so for today's tutorial I will be showing y'all how to create a structured shoulder look. I've got a lot of requests for a tutorial on how I do this. I've used this for like a velvet dress before, or actually I think 2 velvet dresses. I've also used this for jackets, blazer patterns, all types of things, but it's really just to give you, I like to call it that Balenciaga look. They do lots of structured shoulder looks, and so for this tutorial you'll really just need a sleeve pattern. You'll need this right here. You'll need the super thick shoulder pads. If you want an even more structured look, you'll have to double them. This is an example of like a jacket I did that had the double shoulder pads. And then you'll also need ultra stiff pellon interfacing. They have this at JAELL. It's fusible, by the way. This is what it looks like. And then I don't know if I said muslin already, but some muslin. So with that being said, let's get started. All right, so we are going to start by creating the shape of our shoulder. So I'm going to sit my shoulder pad up there, and then I'm going to grab my pellon interfacing. Let me get that real quick. I have my interfacing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sit this on top of the shoulder pad. Actually, let me put a couple of pins in the shoulder pad just to make sure it doesn't move. So this is how we do this, right? Now, if you want the shoulder to sit higher, what you would do is take the bottoms, or the bottom of your pellon interfacing, and you want to move it out at an angle. That's going to give you an even more structured look. Actually, want to use this side since it has that crease in there. Alright. So, let's see. I'm trying to make sure that this is like touching both sides of my, oh, excuse me, I'm trying to make sure that this is touching both sides of the shoulder pad. Okay, so this is cool. We're just going to do alright, so now I'm going to pin that in place real quick. Alright, so now I have this pinned at the front and I have it pinned at the back. Okay, I'm just making sure this is secure. I'm gonna add like one more pin to the front because you really want this to be laying flat down. Okay, so this is what we have. Oh, so see how that's, I don't know if y'all can tell, but that's not laying flat at the shoulder. So that means I need to readjust this a little bit so it can lay properly. So this is our structure right there. So now I'm going to take, a Sharpie and also a ruler, and we are going to draw the shape on here. So whenever I create this type of pattern, typically I have to make the the length of the shoulder. So from here to here, have to make it longer, and it has to go out more so at an angle. I noticed that when I was like looking at Balenciaga and just other designers and brands that do this structured shoulder look, the shoulder typically does the shoulder pattern typically does go out at an angle. So that's what we are going to do for ours. I like that. All right. So now it's really important that what's the best way to explain this? You need to have this pellon piece. It needs to come down to about like right here above the breast, or that's how I do it. And then this piece right here needs to go like down the back. And I'll be able to explain that more once we start putting it together, but as we're draping this now, just kind of keep that in mind. But this is what we are working with. And then I'm also going to find the center, and I'm going to draw a straight line. So now that's the top of our shoulder. I don't know if you can see that, but there you go. That's the top of our shoulder. And then I'm also, just to make stuff a little bit easier, I'm going to take my draping ribbon, and I'm about to put that, or my draping ribbon, put that on top of the line I just drew. I feel like that'll make it easier later when I'm creating the pattern. All right, so now we are good to start draping. So as you can see, I'm just doing like some basic draping, honestly, nothing too difficult. I feel like once you know how to make the shoulder part, everything else is pretty easy. I didn't really plan on if I was just gonna do a regular bodice or drape a pattern for a jacket, but let's just say this is kind of like for a jacket. I wanted this to be like loose fitting, so I only put a dart at the front under the bust, and then instead of like doing a side bust dart, and then I also did a dart going down the back. And so yeah, so what we're creating here is just a pattern, so you want to make sure that you also include seam allowance for the top of the shoulder and also the side seam. If you want to have a center back seam, you need to include seam allowance for that, and then also a seam allowance for the front. And then I also add seam allowance for this specific design. I add seam allowance for the armhole as well. So make sure you add all of that before you cut out your pattern. Alright, so this is what our pattern looks like. Now, the last thing is the sleeve. So I honestly made a couple of sleeve patterns a while ago, like just using some YouTube tutorials. And for the most part, I continue to reuse the same patterns over and over again. Is this it? Or is this one we were on? I'm gonna pull them out in a second, but basically for our sleeve, that's the last part of this. Then I'm gonna sew it all together for you. For your sleeve, you want to measure basically from the top where our let me bring this closer, where our pellon interfacing is. Measure how long it is from there to the top of the shoulder. So that's looking like about 2 1/4. So I'm going to take my regular sleeve pattern, extend the top of it about 2 1/4 inches, and then basically just like even out the lines, and then I'm going to add that into this. Now the sleeve pattern may be too long. I actually typically hope that it's a little too long, that way I can, when I'm sewing it, I can go in and bring it in and make it the right size. But I always tell people it's important to like test your pattern first before you actually like cut out your for real fabric, because you never know how something is going to turn out. So we're just going to say like this is me creating, you know, a test pattern. So now I'm about to make a sleeve, see if it fits, do any adjustments that I need, and then if that works, then I will go to cutting out my actual fabric. But now I'm about to move to the sleeve alterations. All right, so if you want your sleeve to have like this scrunchy effect, or basically, you know, an oversized type of sleeve look, you actually should add like a couple more inches to the bottom of your sleeve. So that's what I ended up doing. I added a couple more inches at the bottom of my sleeve, and then you also want to add the 2 1/4, or however whatever your measurement is for the top part. You want to add that at the top, and as you can see, I'm just kind of connecting the lines, making it all flow. And then I decided to add a 1/2 inch extra on both sides of the pattern piece, just in case it may be too short or anything like that, but it probably won't be anyways. But yeah, so now I'm just cutting it out, and I'm about to add it to the pattern. So we're going to start by sewing the front and back darts first. Then you want to go ahead and sew the shoulder seams together. So at this point, you actually want to go ahead and you want to underline the pellon interfacing piece to your bodice. I'm going to explain why towards the ending. I typically do that step at this point, but I did things out of order, but I'm going to explain that in a little bit. But yeah, just letting you know, this is when you want to add your pellon interfacing. All right, so this is what it looks like now. Once I put this on the dress form, this is what we are working with. It literally looks perfect. That's the back. So now the only thing that I need to do is we need to sew down. So imagine that if this was lined, you need to sew the pellon piece, you need to sew that down to your lining. So I'm going to I'm pinning through the muslin onto the here we go. I'm pinning through the muslin onto the pellon, and then that way when we take this off of the dress form, we are going to sew around the borders. But again, you only do this to the lining, not the actual fabric. So for some reason, the video of me sewing the pellon interface into the shoulder, it's not working and it won't let me add it to the tutorial. But it's pretty self-explanatory. All you're doing is just sewing the pellon in place where you pinned it around the edges. And so yeah, it's pretty simple, pretty easy, but that's all I did. All right, so now we have that sewn in, and that is what that looks like. Okay, that is what it is giving. And then of course you would hand sew your there we go. And of course you would hand sew the you would hand sew the shoulder pad to this. And another tip, sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. I say it's more so helpful for jackets. It's also adding a piece of of the pellon interfacing that kind of goes right here, creating like a crescent moon shape that goes there to basically keep this sticking out. That's also very helpful. But yeah, so that is the end of our tutorial. I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments if it was, and I will see y'all next week.